All right, welcome back. We're continuing from the previous video where we went and opened up or installed Blender. Once you install Blender, we went and learned a little bit about the interface, a quick, crash course. Then we went ahead and created this coin that we're going to bring into Unity. So in this video, we're going to add the material to this coin. And in Blender, in order for us to do that, we're going to click on this coin, this object here. And on the right hand side, properties window, you're going to go all the way down to this little button here. Looks like a beach ball. You want to click on that. That's the materials properties panel. And then you're going to see this open area here. It should be blank because it's just the default on there. And so right now we're just going to click on the plus because we want to add a material. Now this material is already connected to this coin. As you can see here, if I went down to the base color and I start changing the color, it'll change the color. And if you don't see this color changing, it just means you're in the wrong, render mode. So the viewport, like normally you can see it like this, right? But if you wanted to see like wireframe, you go here. You want to see this part right here. This is right here. This is just viewport. It's just shaded, right? So you can see the hull when you're doing this, and then you can see the shaded portion when you're doing this. But if we want to see the material, we're going to click on the shading. And that's how we can see the material that we have selected onto that object. So just for even more clarification, when we're talking about materials they describe how something will be rendered on the screen for Blender. So right now we're saying this material here will be rendered with the color blue, the subsurface area, and all these other attributes that we can change to say how this will be rendered. What we want is we want to be able to render an image on this on this object using this material. So right now it says material 0.002. That's the default name that it gave it, some random name here. And if you have a lot of materials, it's going to be very difficult for you to determine which material is which. Let's say if I had multiple materials on this. So it's a good idea to be able to rename this. So I'm going to double click on this. And then I'm going to give this a name. I'm going to call this coin base material. And I'm using camel casing there. And that way I can tell which material this is no matter what happens. So how do we add our image? Well, first you need to understand a little bit about these dots here. These dots mean something different depending on the color. Yellow dot means you can plug something into this base color. The gray dot means it is a value, and that purple dot means that it is it's a vector, meaning there's 3 values basically that you can plug into this. For instance, let's say if we looked at metallic here, that's from 0 to 1, right? So if I were to drag this all the way through, it could get to 1, or it can be at 0, right? So metallic is basically just a number, so that's why that's gray. So now that we understand that, in order for us to input our image, we're going to go ahead and select this yellow dot here, and then we're going to go down here to image texture. There's a bunch of different things here you can look at, but the kind of texture we want, not color or converter or anything like that, we want this image texture here. I'm going to click on that, and then from there we can go ahead and open up the image that we want. We can create a new one or open up one that already exists, and you want to go ahead and find that image wherever you stored that image. I know exactly where I stored mine, so I'm just going to paste that link there. I'm going to select that image right there, and I'm going to open that image. So one thing you'll notice when I do this, you'll notice that this right here is not the way I meant this to turn out. So the texture is on there, but it's not on there the way I would like it to be. So what we have to now do is a little bit of editing the UVs on this. And basically UVs determine how a texture will be placed on an object. We're not going to get into too much detail, but just understand that that's what UVs are. And we need to edit that to make sure it fits this coin properly. So we can go into the UV editor. I'm going to click on that, and then what you should see is this. If you don't see this right here, you can go up and select the one image that you've had. Make sure that that's the case. From there, I am going to want to select all these faces. I'm going to hit number 2, and I'm going to go into face selection mode. While holding down shift, I am going to highlight all the faces. Now, when I do this, it does not get the faces we don't see. So it's important to scroll all the way around this and hold shift down and drag across all of these. And you could, there is an easier way to do this, but get used to moving around here to be able to navigate through this, so that way you're used to using all these shortcuts. So now that I held shift and I marqueed across the object, I have it all selected here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a pretty good view here, and that's in the Z-axis. In order, I can just click on that Z right there and it'll automatically go into the Z-axis right above the object. Now I'm going to go over here to the UV window, live unwrap. Okay, so that should be unwrapped, right? So now what I can do is I can come over here and I can basically hit W. I highlight everything, or I just highlight like this and I hit W. And now watch what this does as I do that. You see how it's moving that texture? And I can move that right into place there. And the other thing I can do is hit R and start dragging and start shrinking that, as you can see. I'm going to shrink it right in the middle, right there. And I'm going to bring this down, something like that. Hit W again to bring it up a little bit. And there we have it. Now when I look across here, this side is not done, but this side is. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to highlight everything I see here, and I'm going to do that same thing. I'm going to start moving the texture in place, and then I'm going to hit the R and I'm going to start shrinking that. And then I can hit the W key to start moving it again in place. I'm not trying to be 100% perfect here, but you get the idea. And there's a lot better ways to do this, but we're just going through it really quick so you can get the gist of things. Now, all of these tools over here basically do the same thing. As you see here, I'm using the move, I can use the rotate, I can use the scale, I can use the transform, and a whole host of other things that I can use over here. But for right now, we're just going to go ahead and use the shortcut keys to be able to do these things with those selected. So now that I have that selected, I'm going to go over here, and you see all this stretching over here? Even though these are fine, I don't want all this stretching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select those faces by holding shift down. Well, actually, no, I'll first select it so I get all of these. Now the problem here is I'm in this line mode, I believe, so I'm going to hit 3 again and then select it again. There we go. And you can see it up here. I'm in faces mode here. You know, select faces. So I'm selecting those faces. I'm going to come over here, hold shift down, select these faces. I'm going to go all the way across, make sure I have all the faces selected. Now once I have all those faces selected, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to make sure I highlight everything, and I'm going to use the W key, and then I'm just going to move everything away all the way up here. And in fact, I can literally right click on that and just shrink it to make it look something like this, all the way down to something like this. That might be even cooler. Yeah, I like that. And if you don't have something like this that you have to worry about, you can easily do the same thing, let's say like with a standard texture and free textures actually that you can get online. If you go to a place called ambientcg.com, here it is, ambientcg.com. You can look up a bunch of textures, free textures. You can click on that. You can download these textures. So if I were to just click on one of these right here, I can download it as a zip and do the exact same thing. And instead of having to worry about all of this, I will make a rock or something and put that texture on there. But it's up to you what you want to do. Now we're done with our texture. Now we got to be able to export this thing out. And then to export it out, we're going to go to our modeling, which is fine. So I'm going to go hit 4. I'm in object mode. I'm going to hit W to get to this move right here. Make sure I'm in object mode. Yes. Make sure I have that selected. Yes. And I want to make sure that this is going to be up this way. I want it like this. So now I'll go to File, Export, FBX. Choose where you want to save this. I normally save mine in an assets folder. And you can name it whatever you want. I'm gonna name it coin, ucoin. And I want the object type. I don't want the camera. I don't want anything except for the mesh. I'm going to limit this to the selected object. Let's see. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and export this now. Hit export FBX. So after that FBX is exported, we now want to go ahead and open that up in Unity, and we'll do that in the next video.